if you guys are in for something heavy, well, to me
Yeah.
it feels like heavy.
Heavy is good. Heavy is the starting point, right? So let's look at it and see what we can
I will
discover.
just read it because that's easier for me. There was a quote. It's based on a quote. And the quote is, confront a manipulator about what they did wrong and watch them make it about you. And this quote triggered something in me that I haven't found an answer for yet. So I would like to know your take on this thought and maybe others too.
Okay.
I've been in a destructive relationship for over 8 years that ended about 12 years ago. It actually made me go into the work of Byron Katie. Now, the thing is, whenever he manipulated me, I used to think, well, me too. I'm manipulating from time to time when something seems really important to me and I have ways to get it. I will try. I also kept justifying his behavior because of traumatic stuff in his early life, like losing a younger brother to a car accident. So when I read a quote like, confront a manipulator about what they did wrong and watch them make it about you, I keep thinking, but it is about me. And that's where I can get really confused with the work and manipulation when turning a thought around towards myself. That's what I kept doing in that relationship and what almost destroyed me as a person. My integrity, my self-worth, my self-recognition, my intuition. And that too is exactly the reason why I haven't done any work on this relationship yet, although I know that it ain't over until it's over. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. And it's such an important thing to consider and to think about how to navigate that kind of stressful situation. Because you're right, the work does bring us back to our responsibility. And ultimately, we are responsible for our own internal experience, our own happiness. Um, and so, but it's a fine line where you can end up, like you said, almost destroying yourself if you're not doing that in a gentle way. If you're not doing that in a way that, if you're doing that in a way that is putting you down or disempowering you, and that's not the point of doing this work. Point of doing this work is to find some inner freedom. It's not to, that's all. That's the only point of it. And so you can tell that the test of whether you're moving in the right direction or not is whether that inner freedom is starting to grow inside of you, starting to expand, or if it's going in the opposite direction, then you can know that you're going in the opposite direction. Even if it seems like, even you could even say the work, right? The questions, even if they seem to be pointing you to go in a direction that is causing you more stress, for me, that's not really the work. That's just maybe I'm not quite understanding what's my, what are the possibilities as I'm exploring here. Because there's only, like, you're either getting freer or you're not getting freer. And I like to tell people, don't take, directions from the work. The work doesn't tell me what to do. The work offers a lot of options, a lot of possibilities. It gets me to think in the opposite and see things from all different ways. But I literally just follow my feeling, which is this is getting warmer, warmer, warmer. Oh no, colder, colder, warmer, warmer, warmer. And that is what will set me free. What's the reason I love the work as an external format is that it gives me ideas to look over. It's like, hey, have you looked over here? Have you tried this? Have you looked over here? And these are possibilities. And so then I take my little sensitive meter and just go doop, 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 doop. Yes, warmer, warmer, warmer. And then, oh no, 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 nope, not that way, this way, that way. And that way you feel your way in the dark, really, towards more freedom. So that's the overall context that I think of when I'm doing the work. But also, even if I'm not doing the work, I'm just thinking about something, or I'm in a relationship, or I'm trying to navigate what's the right thing to do, or how to hold it. Um, so yeah, that's the first kind of big picture thing that I think is really important to hold. Um, so yeah, it's all about me, right? That's what we tend to see in inner work, is that it's me too. I manipulate too. Yes, he manipulates, but I also do it. Um, it's understandable that he would manipulate because of his trauma, and so you can start to find reasons to justify their behavior or to blame yourself, but neither one of those things is actually the work, and neither one of those things is actually going to give you an experience of freedom. Because justification means that you are basically kind of condoning something, like you're condoning their bad behavior. That has zero part in the work, zero place in the work. I can do the work on a criminal, someone who did a terrible crime, and I can set myself free, but in no point in that work am I condoning that person's behavior, encouraging it, or wanting to enable it in any way. So if I'm not clear on the difference between inner work, like how I see things for my own self, for my own inner freedom, and my behavior and what I do with that other person, if I confuse those in any way, then it gets very confusing, because I start thinking, oh, well, if I see if I see some compassion for the other person, then now I have to go easy on them in a certain way, or I have to just allow them to continue being, say, abusive, which is not the point of doing the work. The only purpose of these questions is to find that inner freedom that is independent of the outside abuse in this case, that allows me to hold something softly inside. Like, I can be compassionate on the inside, hold someone with love, understand that they went through trauma, see that they're in this reactive behavior that's out of control, but and and really feel that. It keeps me soft, keeps me in my heart soft, gentle, loving, open, and at the same time, in the area of behavior, be holding my value as well and saying, this doesn't float with me. I don't want to be with you, or I won't. If we're going to be together, this is not going to work for me. And so there's a kind of a no on the outside, which sounds, at first sounds contradictory to that love on the inside and that compassion on the inside. But those two opposites, if you can hold them together, for me, that is the truer truth. That's the closer truth. And the problem is, if I can't hold them together, then I flip back and forth to, oh, it's just because of their trauma. I feel sorry for them. I'll just be easy on them. And then flip to, oh, but they're really being a jerk, and I have no tolerance for this, and get out. But then that hurts my heart. And then, oh no, I need to be compassionate. Okay, I'll be soft. And then I flip to the other side and be like, oh, okay, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And then they abuse me again. And then I'm like, so I'm going back and forth between this softness in the heart and this no on the outside, or no to the behavior. And so I think the only solution that I am able to find with that is to expand my vision enough that I can hold the compassion on the inside and the no on the outside at the same time. And then I have the best of both worlds. I am kind. I'm not going to be abusive back to them. I don't have any edge to my words. I'm not trying to hurt the person, but I'm also not going to just put up with it either. And so it's a tricky navigation. This requires a growth of consciousness in a way, a growth of the heart and a growth of the mind, so that you can hold both the no and the love at the same time. And that's what I see the work as being. It's like a way to do that. It's a process experientially of playing with that. Okay, how could it be? How could it be true that that person is deserving of compassion? And how could it be true that that person is deserving of a no? And if I can hold those and if I can work with those, that's where there is a way through my experience. People sometimes change. Wonderful. If so, and I still am like feeling compassionate and love to be with them and their behavior changes, great. People often don't change. And so if they don't change, then I have my compassion and love for the person. And I also have respect for myself that I'm not going to just put up with being abused, let's say. So the point of the work, what real freedom is on the inside is an independence. I'm free whether they change or they don't change, whether they stop the behavior or they continue the behavior. I have options in either case on the outside, but on the inside, I'm free because my heart still stays open and I'm still in a place of love and gentleness. And we've not even talked about how I'm seeing myself, right? Because we can also push ourselves down in the same area. Everything I've talked about so far has been about really the turnaround to the opposite, really. Like he's not such a bad person, right? He's a bad person. And turn it around, he's not such a bad person. We're finding compassion for that person, understanding for them. But the turnaround to the self can also be hard to swallow. Like he's a bad person. Oh, I'm a bad person. And then suddenly me too. I've manipulated. I've done all the same things that he's done. And if you're not holding that very gently, you can end up beating yourself up and lowering yourself, disempowering yourself so much that now who am I to break up a relationship, or who am I to interfere with an abuser of some sort, because now I've just reduced my self-esteem down to zero. But that again is not really the work. That's not what we're trying to do here. What we're doing in questioning a thought like, he's a bad person, and then turning it around to I'm a bad person, it's like, can I find any place that I'm similar for the sole purpose of balancing so that I'm not a victim? Because if he's a bad person, then he's the propagator and I'm the perpetrator and I'm the victim. And so that's a very powerless role. What the turnaround to the self does, it's like, oh, wait. No, he's not like such a perpetrator. I'm also a perpetrator. Like there's a little bit of balance in here. Like, okay. So that just reminds me that I have power too, even though it's stressed and kind of crazy and all that. But I'm similar in some ways. There's a level playing field. And in that way, there's just a little less victim type of feeling. But if I take it too far, I'm going to end up doing the same thing to myself. Like, oh no, I'm the perpetrator. I'm terrible. Like, and then he's the victim. So I better not, I better like bad on me, and I better go save him because he's now the victim of my perpetration. You can turn it around so far that you mess yourself up. And you'll tell because you feel the stress of it. Stress will tell you. Just trust that feeling inside of the stress. If it's coming up, you're going in the wrong direction. If it's going down, you're going in the right direction. And so these are subtle things to hold, and it's hard to even just do lip service to it right now. It's something you have to experience as you walk through and do the work on this. But your question comes out of like preparation for doing this kind of work. on a relationship, like something you've not done to this point because of that fear that you might end up putting yourself down or justifying the other person's behavior or somehow getting caught back in the trap of a codependent kind of relationship or something like that. So I guess the takeaway from all this is hold it gently, hold it very gently. The turnarounds, hold them gently. Take each one and use it to balance the original statement. You know, if he's a terrible person, then he's not a terrible person, just balances it a little bit. It could be true and not true. And see if you can hold that. And if you start going towards I'm a terrible person and yeah, you can find some truth in that a little bit. Don't take it too far. Just a little drop of that is all that's needed to balance it out. So I guess the overall thing is to go into this work with the idea that you're exploring something, there's charge in it, and you can easily end up hurting yourself with it. So be like little steps with it, be gentle with it. And if you notice yourself going too far with anything, back off of it. Maybe you might get to a turnaround like, I don't know, I pulled that out of air that, he's terrible, then I'm terrible. Like, you may
Yeah.
just be like, that is just so strong wording for me that I'm not even going to, I'm just going to discard that turnaround completely because it's not actually helping me very much. I'm so used to beating myself up that that's actually going to do me a disservice. And so I may just skip. So you be the leader of your work. Like you follow, like you be the pilot who's navigating these shoals and listen to your stress. If you're starting to get stressed, move back and just take it easy. Do a little bit, looking for balance. And if you can find balance, great. If you can't, back off of it. This is not the time to be like a hardcore, I have to find 3 examples or I have to do every turnaround. Like, don't be rigid about it when you're doing this work. Let the work be this kind of loose thing that you're floating in while you are listening to yourself and seeing if you can find a way to experience more freedom while you're doing it. So that would be my suggestion with it. But it's the most challenging type of situation to do right there. And it can also be helpful in those kind of situations to work with somebody, especially if they have experience, facilitator, to hold you so you don't have to hold yourself, because sometimes it's a lot to do to be like exploring this and then at the same time trying to not beat yourself up, but also, find what you're finding, it can be a lot. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts there. Any thoughts hearing that?
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Uh, I think what struck me most was when you said, uh, when you hold the thought, for example, he's terrible, and then the opposite, I'm terrible. That it is to balance um, the feeling of power, to be in power again. I never saw it that way. So that's important to me, I think. Yeah.
It's like a medicine, like if you have some problem with your heart, you take a certain medicine to make it stronger, back up to, a
Yeah.
certain power again. And then you may not keep taking that medicine, or you certainly don't take more than you need. Otherwise, you could end up, your heart would be pounding faster than it needs to, or I don't know what. So, like, these turnarounds are medicine, and the dosage is also important, just enough to give me that sense of I'm not a victim here, but I'm actually, uh, I, I have more power than I think, and that is the purpose of the work. When I
Yeah.
find empowerment, that's when I find freedom. That's when I find happiness again. That's when I find strength. Um, then I can say no to somebody and not be, crushed by it. So that's what we're looking at. We're strengthening the inside through doing this work. And I think this is especially important for highly sensitive people, of which I'm one of them, where it's so easy to feel everything and to be paying attention to all the little subtleties and trying to do it right, and also so willing to put ourselves down and to not say no and all of those same kind of things. So for me, the work is perfect for highly sensitive people because it allows us to do it in a way that is very sensitive. You can do this work kind of chop chop, but it can also be done very subtly, very calmly, very quietly, and very in touch with the, the spirit of this work, which is finding balance, finding a bigger perspective, finding empowerment, and and in that, my behaviors may change, but behavior is separate from the inner experience. I may be saying yes on the inside, I love you, and no on the outside, and that's just, it takes a bigger awareness to be able to do that. So yeah, I think this cuts to the core of what the work is about and how to do the work, in my opinion. It has to be done as a very subtle exercise of exploration with no idea of even figuring out what you're going to do on the behavioral level, no idea of attacking or justifying the other person, and no idea of like making yourself the loser somehow. Like that is not the purpose. The purpose is find a way of seeing this that is free for me, and then behavior will follow. Yeah.
But
But
I
if I
also
try to work, I think that's the confusion is we also want to get to the behavior part. We just want to get there. And so we're doing the work, sometimes almost reverse engineering the work while we're doing it. And that can get in your way. And you have to just forget about that. Let's just look at the experience. Oh yeah, I see that he had trauma. I get it. That softens it for me. And he's being abusive, so goodbye. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting to see that now that you say all this. Um, so it's been 12 years that I'm out of that relationship, and that I noticed, of course, on the inside, I've been working without doing the work. There has been
Yes.
some inner work going on, and actually, uh, if you're I think if you're kind of sincere and authentic and connected to your true nature, you also get there just by doing even unconsciously inner work.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting to see, uh, because I do feel that compassion genuinely now, even without doing the work directly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see if you do the work. I think I haven't done it yet on that relationship, but if you do it from your conversation, I I can see that it becomes much clearer in a shorter time or so.
Yeah. Basically, the work is just a quick way of changing the experience that would naturally happen over years or over time.
Yeah,
I often say the work is nothing new in a way, even though it's only been around for a few decades. We all question our thoughts when we're left alone. When something's stressful, we start to turn things over. We start to look at things from different points of view. We start to, we start to see that. We notice what hurts, what doesn't. And so we all do that naturally, and it's a very natural process of kind of digesting a stressful experience. But the work is like, it just does it so efficiently. It just cuts right to the chase, and it just gets It just allows you to go through that process in a quick way. A perfect example for me was when my mom died, and I was in full grief, but I just did the work every day. And in 2 months, my grief was completely gone and has never come back. So that's just an accelerated version. It might have taken me a year or 2 years. I don't know. Um,
Mm.
but I would have gotten through it. Probably. I would have gotten through it. Sure. But this is just like an accelerator. And that's how I love to see it. Because what is the work doing? It's not some artificial outside thing that we're using on ourselves.
Mhm.
No, these questions all ask us, hey, what do you think? Every single one. Is it true? What do you think? Or how do you react? Tell me. And who would you be without the thought? Tell me your experience. And then could the turnaround be truer? What do you think? It's all asking me, what's my experience? So that's why it accelerates things. It just keeps pointing me back to me faster than I would normally go there.
Mm.
I will work my way back around to what do I think, but it might take me months or years or, take me a long time. The work just holds you there and says, okay, since I got you, let's go there. Let's look. Let's see. And sure enough, that freedom that you would have found eventually is there right away, and you can just start enjoying it sooner. So it's nothing outside. That's the beauty of the work. It's no teaching. It's nothing outside. It's nothing being brought into you. It is you. It's just calling you and saying, "Hey, go look to yourself and ask yourself and listen to yourself." And that's where freedom's found every time. Yeah, thanks for bringing that question because it's just a super super important one and easily confused because it's subtle. It's basically subtle, and it's a coexistence of opposites. If I can have, how can I have an open heart and be saying no at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But it's possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Work is just about our inner experience. That's all. Like people get caught in a similar way about policy making and different things in the world, right? Like politics and different things that should be changed to make the world a better place and doing the work is just saying, can you be free on the inside even if the policy doesn't change? And that's the purpose of the work, the inner world. But then once you've freed the inner world, it's amazing how much change you can do in the outside world. It's amazing how empowered you feel. It's amazing how um, creative you can be. And that same thing can be in relationships as well. You can make huge changes in a relationship. You can leave relationships. You can do things in a nonviolent way. All these creative solutions become yours when you're not in that victim place, which is that internal feeling of stress. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you all for being here as well. Does anyone have anything you want to share? Just hearing that at the very end here, I don't have much time, but if anyone has any insight you'd like to share, I'd love to hear it. Yes. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I've done the same thing where there's just a intermediary belief there. if I do the work on this, then what's going to happen? The worst, I'm afraid that if I do the work on this, I'm going to end up condoning them, or I'm going to stay in an abusive relationship, or I'm, um, you know, override my own truth or something. And so really good to question those so that you can find your own truth of how that may not actually be true. And then you can go into doing the work on the actual issue with more confidence and less fear, which is kind of what you just did, Marika, by bringing this question up. Yeah, cool. All right.
I
Yeah,
have a
Debbie.
quick
Mhm.
thing also. It occurred to me when you were saying holding, I'm gonna holding the situation and the compassion and the love, but then also holding a no at the same time, almost opposites. What occurred to me was yes, it's a no, like, don't want that behavior, don't want to be treated that way. But if you look at it with a mirror, like I keep trying to do, it's actually a bigger yes. And it's a yes to myself
Yeah,
instead of saying no to you. If that feels weird to hold a positive and a negative together at the same time, you hold the with the compassion. Okay, the compassion is for me right now. The yes is for me.
yeah.
And I love you and you can be over there, no problem. And I'm gonna, you know, my bigger yes is for me. So
I love
I just
that.
share that.
It goes back to this idea of balance, and where if I've been giving the other person all the weight, like I've been giving them all the um, power, if you will, or just giving them, like making them right and me wrong, like I've been just sort of in a small place for myself, and everything's about the other person, which is often happens in situations of abuse. Then the turnaround, the balance, which is what we're looking for, is giving more to myself, which seems weird at first because that's seems selfish, seems bad or something according to whatever beliefs I have. But that's actually filling something that was empty and filling something and making that bigger, stronger. And that is going to make me a more of an equal player with the other person. The funny thing about it is, as I become stronger, then somebody who was abusive to me becomes less threatening. It becomes like, okay, we're kind of both strong here. So it's kind of interesting how, and I think this is where the turnarounds to the self start pointing, is to let's build up my experience, like my yes to myself, or um my needs. Like my needs also are important. And so, yeah, what I'm hearing and what you're saying, Debbie, is just the balance factor again. And if I was shortchanging myself, then the turnaround is to be giving more to myself. And if I was over giving to that person, then it might be cutting back towards that person. And that's balance. But it doesn't have to be extreme one or the other. We're just looking for the balance place. If I start cutting back, giving it all to myself too much and cutting completely from the other person, that's also not balanced. But you find the way by noticing that experience of whether it feels free inside or whether it feels stressful.